There is no way to talk about what's happening in the crypto markets and the stock market without talking about EverGrande and what that means for China and really the rest of the world. We're going to talk about it today. Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy, and if you want to follow along my journey as I build wealth for my family, then subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And remember, none of this is intended to be financial advice. I am merely a guy sitting in front of the computer talking to a camera. You may not even know what's going on with EverGrande. I imagine, though, that many of you do. If you've looked at the markets, whether it be the crypto markets or anywhere else, everything is down significantly, 20%, almost across the board. And it seemed to happen overnight. And the question becomes, well, what's going on? So I'm sure many of you woke up, looked at your portfolio, and said, what is happening right now? And a quick search online, it probably didn't take long to figure out what the situation is, what the issue is. And so let's talk about EverGrande. Okay, so this is a great article I saw on Time Magazine's website, but it talks about EverGrande and sort of what has been happening in the real estate market in China. Essentially, the real estate bubble in China just burst. And basically, it was all stemming from this company called EverGrande. And they were huge speculators in the real estate markets in China, building massive residential skyscrapers all over the place. And essentially what they were doing, what they were running, almost like a Ponzi scheme. Collected all these money in deposits to build these homes. They took out mortgages and loans from investors and different things. And then they began building all of this infrastructure. They would begin a new project, use the revenues and the money coming in from that project to fund and finish a previous project. And so it was sort of this ever-evolving cycle of shifting money essentially from future projects to fund and pay for current projects. And obviously we know that eventually when you don't have enough money, new money coming in, it all falls apart. What's crazy is this is the interesting thing. So located outside of China's southern megacity Guangzhou, the sprawling complex was to have 292 buildings. So they're talking about this particular area that they were developing. A gymnasium, spa, cinemas, private school, boutiques, restaurants on 2,000 acres. And so this particular person put $21,000, which is a huge sum of money, 24 years worth of income whenever China has a disposable income of about $650 every year. And so he sunk this massive amount of money into a home, basically an apartment or a condo, I guess you would say, in this area. Well, it was never developed. The homes were unfinished. People were essentially moving into these concrete shells of homes because they were not finished. There was no gas or electricity, sometimes no windows, weeds growing up everywhere. When you have no additional disposable income, you had nowhere else to live. So these people were moving into these basically dilapidated buildings that were never completed, never built. And so here's the thing, EverGrande, they're not just in real estate. They bought a soccer team, football team for those of you overseas. They got invested in water, in electric cars. So they got their hands sort of in a whole lot of other things besides just real estate. And that sucked up a lot of income for them. Reportedly, they have close to 200,000 employees to keep all of this going. Obviously, that's a giant drain on their expenses. It says here on this Time magazine, alarm bells rang out this week in the news that the world's most indebted real estate developer, EverGrande, is struggling to make loan payments on its $300 billion liabilities. $300 billion in liabilities, which is astronomical. So here's essentially what has happened in China. These real estate developers have been speculating in real estate and building and building and building, and there is not the demand. The statistic is something like 20% of all residences in China are empty, meaning they've built homes 20% beyond what there's actually demand for. And obviously when you do that, they pay for that in debt mainly and liabilities to every average day people who were putting deposits on future builds. And now it's basically about to all come crashing down. Part of their issue was the cost of building materials going up, but a lot of that cost in building materials going up was because they were building beyond demand. So the company was founded in 1997. Founder was China's third richest man by Forbes last year. But essentially it came out on Monday, yesterday, that they would not be able to make their loan payments. Something like $30 million or $60 million was their loan payment that they were unable to make just yesterday. And so obviously leading up to that, everything was tanking. Crypto was tanking. The stock market was tanking. So then the question becomes is how does this affect the United States, or why is this affecting the United States? And what you got to look at is a lot of these, so you would think, okay, this is China real estate, this really isn't going to affect us, but the reality is that just like the housing crisis in 2008 here, all of these loans were being packaged and resold on the secondary market. A lot of companies in the United States were purchasing these packages and these loans, so there is risk involved here with US companies. And why you're seeing these huge drops in crypto and in the stock market likely has to do with a lot of those banks that purchased some of these packaged mortgages and loans trying to mitigate their risk. They are selling, they are trying to liquidate some of their assets. We know though it's not extremely public, there have been companies that have been buying into Bitcoin, huge hedge funds, large banks have been buying crypto as an asset to hold, obviously hoping the price was going to go up. Well, if they are exposed in some of these packaged loans, then obviously they realize that they are not going to be able to recover those liabilities, and so they are scrambling to sell some of their assets before everything tanks so that they can sort of offset those exposed loans. This article was written on September 17th. So this was written last week, and so you'll see down here it talks about the next few days will be critical. EverGrande has a quarterly debt interest payment on Monday. Well, we know that they missed that. Here you go, $34 million debt payment. And so now you've got to think of what happens with EverGrande. There's a couple options as far as the Chinese government goes. They could just let them fail, and basically what happens is a lot of their citizens are out a tremendous amount of money that they put up for these homes. Obviously there's people in the US and banks in the US that will be exposed to that as well. The second thing that could happen is that the Chinese government could buy up EverGrande for pennies on the dollar and basically take it over. Whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. If they did that, then they're kind of signaling that this is okay to do, and I don't know that they're willing to do that. So likely what will happen is we will see a continued drop in crypto and the stock market, at least for the short term, until basically the assets that are being liquidated are liquidated, and then obviously there will be a sort of buyback in of people who have been holding off or maybe sold knowing this was coming and are waiting to buy back at a lower price, and so it'll come back up to some degree, likely not to where it was, at least in the short term. We could also see, we've seen the price of building materials coming down. Likely the price of building materials will continue to drop because you've got this huge amount of demand in China that has basically evaporated in thin air because nobody's going to loan to EverGrande anymore, and likely a lot of these projects are not going to be finished. So if you're wondering what's going on with the crypto markets, this is it. EverGrande caused a huge ripple effect out of China and across the global economies. Big shout out to the Patreon supporters below. They're what helped make this channel possible. Got another video starting right over here. Go check that one out, and I will see you over there.